Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Venu's Weekly Cricket Catch Up. Hi Visan, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. It's number 9, isn't it? So I'm really looking forward to it. As a Pakistani fan, which we're going to touch upon, I'm really happy. And yeah, there's a lot to look forward to this week. A very busy week, especially in Test cricket. So I just can't wait, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's been a great week of cricket. So much cricket on, and it's funny you said you're happy as being a Pakistan fan, and I'm quite sad being a Sri Lankan fan. After Sri Lanka lost quite convincingly to England on Monday in the second and last Test match of the series. Once again, Sri Lanka had a second innings collapse. This time it wasn't the first innings they collapsed. Second innings they were collapsed, and they were bowled out for 126. And as a result, England needed 160 odd to win the game, and they did it quite convincingly thanks to well-needed 50 from Sibley, and he was aptly supported by Joss Buttler, gave them a clean sweep, a 2-0 victory for England, and I think that's now 5 games in a row winning in Sri Lanka, considering that when they last tour they won 3-0. So very extremely convincing series win for England. They'll be quite pleased with Joe Root looking in excellent touch ahead of the India series, which the first Test match starts on Friday. But what do you think about the whole? What was your overall feeling about the Sri Lanka England series, Fazan?
I think my overall feeling was I actually initially had predicted Sri Lanka to win it 2-0 because I just thought in home conditions, they'd have the upper hand. But I think given they were playing in South Africa and they haven't played at home for quite a while, they actually ended up being a more rusty side, especially in that first Test match. After that first collapse in that first Test match, I just thought they're going to learn from it, and it looked like they would learn from it. England, of course, won the first one pretty comfortably, and were pretty much, for me, were very, very impressive, I thought, throughout pretty much the whole tour and the 2 Test matches. But in that first day especially, they came out the blocks really quickly. And, I think there's some very big positives for England. Root, getting a double 100 and also 186, which going into the India tour, they'll be looking to him to continue that form after he hadn't scored a single Test 100 last year. And, I think Buttler getting some runs and also Bairstow were big pluses for them. Sri Lanka will be happy in the sense that Dinia looks like he's a terrific spinner. Whether he can do it in away conditions is going to be the biggest question mark, I think. But yeah, we know, though, from this Test match that in home conditions, he is quality, he really is. And I think also we saw that people like James Anderson and Stuart Broad are still pretty potent in these, flat decks or tracks that are normally meant to be more helpful for the spinners. And it shows that their experience shone through at times. And they'll be, I'm sure, again, looking to them in the India series to make more of an impact than maybe they have done in previous years, given how well they managed to perform in, I think, spurts in these 2 Test matches. So I think on the whole, England will be thinking this is a fantastic Test series for them to start off their subcontinental tour. Sri Lanka will be thinking, we had some chances, especially in the second Test match, where the first 3 days, I think really they had a slight edge in that second Test match, and they didn't, as you said, they got bowled up for 126, and that kind of reckless batting and maybe I think mindless is a bit harsh, but it kind of sums it up. Maybe irresponsible batting by a pretty experienced top 6, especially from Sri Lanka, was pretty disappointing to see, considering they'd scored 381 all out in the first innings, to then get skittled for 126. I think, especially when they had a lead going into the second innings, I think, was really disappointing. And I think from a Sri Lankan perspective, which I'm sure you can agree on, is that they threw the game away there, really. And I think it's something that they clearly need to look at and make sure it doesn't happen again. But there were some positive signs to even get in that position in the first place. But they'll be disappointed that they've lost 5 matches in a row now to England at home. because a home is supposed to be your fortress, and especially somewhere like Gaul, where someone like Harath or Murali in the past would have absolutely wrecked through teams, but they relied too much on one player in Embaldinho. So I think for me, disappointing in a way for Sri Lanka, but they've got some exciting young players coming through still. They just need to piece it together, and I'm sure they will. And I'm sure the rest of the year will be, much improved and a brighter spark. And they've got Mickey Arthur, who I still think is a fantastic coach. So I'm sure he'll do well with them. And with England, they're going into the India tour now, I think someone said to me that India haven't lost a single test match at home for about 7 years, apparently, which is very surprising to me. But I think someone said that to me. I don't know if that's entirely true, but if it is, I wouldn't be too surprised given the home conditions. Maybe there's been quite a few draws potentially as well, but they are clearly a very, very accomplished and established side at home. And given someone like Ashwin and Jadeja, I know Jadeja's going to be, I don't think he's going to be playing, but they've got Axel Patel and some others, so Washington and Sundar. So they're clearly going to be a threat, and it's going to be a very ominous task for England. But if anyone can do it, I think maybe it would either be New Zealand or someone like England at the moment. So they've got big players like Stokes and Archer coming back, Rory Burns. Let's see how that goes. But as a whole, I thought the Sri Lanka England Test series was entertaining, and especially the second match. And I'm looking forward to seeing Sri Lanka in action again, because I do think, despite losing 2-0, they'll be able to look at this and think we can build upon this maybe.
Yeah, I agreed with what you said, Fizan. I think you've summed it up really well. And I think Sri Lanka will be disappointed because, especially in the second test, they were in the driving seat, or they were in the game for 3 days. And once again, a poor batting display has let them down. But there's some positives, especially at Embaldinho. And with England, they just look very promising. And I'm really looking forward, and I'm sure you are as well, Fizan, to the first test match against India, which begins on Friday. So it's an early morning start for us in the UK. But starts in Chennai on Friday. So I'm really, really looking forward to that series. The 4-match test series. Let's hope it be just as competitive as the India-Australia series. But I'm really looking forward to it. So that's one test series to look forward to. So let's move on to another series that's occurring at the moment. And I'm sure Fizan's happy with what happened the other day. So why is Fizan happy? Well, that's because Pakistan convincingly beat South Africa. Thanks to performances from Norman Ali, Yasir Shah and Fawad Alam. Another excellent 100 from Fawad Alam to power Pakistan to 1-0 up in the series. And South Africa, on the other hand, that's their 8th successive test loss in the subcontinent. So that put things into perspective for South Africa. But yeah, very, very convincing win from Pakistan. And the second match starts on Tuesday at Rawalpindi, so I'm looking forward to that. But convincing win from Pakistan.
Yeah, I thought that Pakistan, from a fan perspective, it was fantastic to see, to be honest with you. And I said this in the match review that I did on the channel, that Pakistan on the whole, their fielding, especially in New Zealand, was really poor throughout the whole of that tour. And going into this test match, I didn't have particularly high hopes, and they really set the tone, I think, with the fielding in day one. South Africa won the toss and elected to bat first, but our fielding and our willingness to really put our bodies on the line and be sharp at all times, to be honest with you, definitely was a bright spark in the match as a whole. And normally, when you see a Pakistan side fielding like that early doors, that they're up for it, I think, is the general consensus. And they showed that, I think, throughout. It was, I think, the first, similar to, I guess, that Sri Lanka-England match, the first 3 days were very competitive, I thought. I think a lot, Ashton was saying to me that he thought South Africa, were slightly in front. I thought, actually, Pakistan was slightly in front. And I think it was one of those things that, as a Pakistani fan, you don't want to be chasing more than something like, I said, 200 or 180, etc. So I think for me, it was a case of, we want to kind of restrict them to as much as possible. And we managed to do that. And the target was only 88, to be honest with you. So for me, that was, I guess, it was one of those things that I looked at and I just thought, as a Pakistani fan, I've never, I think, put in the same sentence Pakistan and the word disciplined. And to me, that's what the performance was. It was a disciplined performance. There weren't too many cracks, I think, in our performance. Off the top of my head, there was a sharp chance that Babar Azam dropped and Yasir Shah dropped a dolly. But apart from that, I think the fielding was exemplary. And in addition to that, we had a tail that wagged, which I don't remember the last time a tail wagged like that for Pakistan. I know Yasir Shah scored 100 in Australia, but we lost that test match inevitably. So the fact here is that 9, 10, 11 scored 80 plus runs for us. And that really made a huge difference. And on day 4, we set the tone with Hassan Ali clean bowled Maharaj first ball of the day. And again, it set the tone. And I think, we, in the vital moments in the match, we came up trumps. The end of that day 3, where Markram and Van der Dussen were in and they were set, we managed to get Van der Dussen out. Then we got Markram out and du Plessis. We got 3 quick wickets for 12 runs, and that turned the match on its head for us. I think it was maybe South Africa were slightly in front there, but then that turned it for me. And then we just carried that momentum on. And I think it's a very positive signs for Pakistan. There's a few, I think, talking points. The openers, I think Imran Butt looks quite talented, but he was a bit rash in the way he got out both times. Well, the second time anyway. And Abid Ali looks like his timing is there, but he just can't get past that start that he keeps on getting. But Fawad Alam scored a fantastic 100. And I think it's very well worth noting that Aidan Markram, who hasn't scored a single 50 in the subcontinent, really gritted his teeth in that second innings. And he really put on a fantastic display of batting and test match batting, as you would say, Venu, because, early doors, him and Van der Dussen were scoring at a run rate of about 1 and over. But what happened is they got themselves in. They made sure they soaked up all of the pressure, and they thought, I'm going to get my eye in. I'm going to make sure that I acclimatise the conditions. And as soon as they did, they're both stroke players, and they started playing their shots. And we saw some absolutely beautiful shots by Aidan Markram and Van der Dussen. I can't commend them enough, because I thought that partnership was an incredible partnership. Unfortunately, they just weren't backed up by the rest of the batsmen. And you'd expect someone like du Plessis, Bavuma, de Kock to get more runs than they potentially did. And they were let down, I think, by the rest of the batsmen. Bavuma hit 40, but apart from that, no one else really chipped in. So that's something they need to look at. Rabada got past 200 wickets, and I mentioned it. This dude is just incredible. Strike rate of 40 in Test match cricket and an average just under 23. So he was a bright spark for them. And for Pakistan, the spinners, obviously, Yasir Shah and Naman Ali performed very well. Fawad Alam ended up getting man of the match, but I would have been more tempted to go with Yasir Shah or Naman Ali, because not just because of the wickets, but they got some vital runs at the bottom of the order. So sorry to go on a little bit about it. It's just I don't usually get to talk about Pakistan in a positive light as of late for the past, I'd say, 6 months or so. So it's nice to see Pakistan win. I know we're at home, so I would expect us to win, and I predicted 2-0, and I'm still going to stick with that. Hopefully, we can take that into into the next match, where the pitch is going to be more of a bowler-friendly pitch. So I think it'll be more challenging, I think, overall in Rawalpindi. So let's see how it goes, but I'm looking forward to that. And so far, so good from a Pakistan point of view. And I think South Africa will be still thinking to themselves, we've got a chance, because we played 3 days of very good cricket, and we can turn it around.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear you speak about Pakistan in such a positive manner. I'm sure I will do the same for Sri Lanka sometime soon. But surely there's question marks on Quinton de Kock's captaincy, Fizan.
Yeah, 100%. I kind of forgot to add that in, because I just thought maybe I was going on too long. But I think that's a fantastic point, Venu. I said this actually in the review that I did, that I do think he looks like someone that doesn't want to be there. And, we talked about this in one of the previous Venu cricket catch-ups, where you mentioned that he wasn't happy to take it on long term, and he's doing it in the interim whilst they find a long-term replacement. But he's basically being a stopgap for them, because he's captaining the other formats. but you can tell that he doesn't particularly want to be captain. I think the issue there for me is that it's rubbed off on the rest of the team a little bit, and also it's rubbed off on his batting. Because if you watch him bat, he's been very irresponsible in the way he's batted. He's tried to score at over 100 strike rate in all his test matches. Against Sri Lanka, he scored no runs. And here again, he scored no runs. And, you know, he came in towards the end of the day, that third day where, you know, we'd taken 3 wickets and he had to block out. And you could just tell he was frustrated. And he clearly, it can be one of two things. Either the captaincy is doing this to him, or it could be a case of he really doesn't enjoy Test cricket as much as he used to. But I think he needs to sort out pretty quickly, because it doesn't bode well for the second Test match, or also the tour. They have a series against Australia as well. He has to buck up, I think, because look, he is seen as being one of their star players, and he needs to chip in, because if he doesn't chip in, then all of a sudden that batting lineup is looking a hell of a lot weaker. He's talented. I think maybe he should drop himself down to 6 and put Bavuma at 5. Then he can play slightly more attacking as well. But I think overall, yeah, his captaincy has been. I think the way he used the bowlers was okay in general. He bowled Nortje, for example, in 6-7 over spells, and same with Rabada, and that's what you should be doing. But the one thing that really baffled me is Aidan Markram bowled a couple of overs, who's a part-time spinner, with a 7 over, 8 over old new ball, which makes no sense to me. And that was a very bizarre decision. But he's a fantastically talented player, Quinton de Kock. And I don't want to say this to say that he's not, because he really is. But this has been very underwhelming, I think, for the past month or so from him. And he's going to need to, I think, sort himself out mentally, I think, more than anything else. And he just has to either accept the fact that he's going to be interim captain and really step up with the bat, or maybe he needs to say to Cricket South Africa, look, I don't want to do this after this tour, and I don't even want to do it short term. Please give it to someone else. And then, I don't know, maybe you have du Plessis who comes back as Test captain for a short while they find a replacement, because I think at the moment it doesn't seem to be doing any good for himself or the team.
Yeah, well said, Fizan. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of South Africa going forward. So the next Test match, I believe, starts on Thursday at Rawalpindi. So really looking forward to that Test match, and the second and final Test match of that series. Shame it's only a 2-match series. But let's move on to another series. So Bangladesh have won the ODI Series 3-0 against West Indies, and Mohammed Saifuddin and Bangladeshi batsmen helped them sweep the series. So Bangladesh posted 297, and Mohammedullah got 64 runs, and Iqbal got 64, and Raheem got 64, and Shakib 51. So loads of 50s there, and they all contributed to it. Was a team effort, and they beat West Indies by 120 runs after they only managed to get 177. So it was the first time West Indies batsmen had to chase a total, because the previous 2 ODIs they batted first and posted a low score, and Bangladesh knocked off the runs quite easily. But a very convincing series win for Bangladesh, and yeah, it was a shame that we have spoken about this before, that West Indies couldn't field their strongest side. But I guess because of the current situation and the bubbles, and maybe some politics in terms of the board, and they couldn't travel. But once again, that doesn't take away from the Bangladeshi performance stuff. And I thought they played really, really well.
Yeah, I think it's one of the first times I've seen. Was it 364 scores? Wasn't it? 3 players scored 64, didn't they? It was so funny. I remember looking at the scorecard, thinking, is that a typo? And I was like, no, it's not. There's 3 players.
I reckon that's never happened. That must never have happened before.
I don't know. I might have to look that up. Or even 3 players scoring the same score. I mean, that probably has happened. Maybe not 64 though. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a funny one, isn't it? Because both of us are thinking it. Like, that's a bit interesting, isn't it? Maybe it's the scientists or mathematicians in each of us. Yeah, I think Bangladesh have done a very good job. Clearly, they're at home and they've done what they need to do, considering that it's a weakened West Indies side. But I think even if it was a full strength West Indies side, Bangladesh themselves would have been wanting to win it, at least 2-1, if not 3-0. But obviously, it would have been a whole different story if it was a full strength windy side. And look, I've said this before, it's slightly disappointing. Josh De Silva to me was the biggest disappointment because he's such a talented player from what we've seen in Test cricket so far, but in ODI cricket he just hasn't quite pieced it together. And the first 2 matches he didn't get any runs, and I don't think he played in the third ODI. I don't know whether he got dropped or whether they just rested him because maybe it just has taken a toll on him and they don't want him to continue to carry on in bad form. But yeah, he's one to look out for, and there are some positives there. I think Alzari Joseph is very consistent and has been for quite some time for them. He's quality, and Maya batted quite well. Carl Maya, he actually bowled a few overs for them as well, and I think he's someone that I'm sure they'll be looking at. Jason Mohammed had a pretty solid couple of performances as well, and Robin Powell looked quite good, I thought, as well. So, and the biggest one for me was Akila Sain looked quite good. I thought overall for them, the left arm spinner looks quite decent. So I think there's a couple of positives in there for them, but overall they'll be a little bit disappointed. They maybe couldn't have done a bit more. Bangladesh will be super happy that Shakib's come back. He scored runs. And Tamim Iqbal looks really good. He looks in good nick at the top of the order for them and is captaining them and seems to be captaining them quite well. And they've got the usual suspects like Mustafiz Rahman and also Mushfiqur Rahim. Very solid performance for them as always. So I think they're shaping up to be a pretty formidable side, and it'll be interesting to see how they do in the T20 World Cup. Actually, I know this is a slightly different format, but this could be the tournament potentially where they have a decent run. They perform quite well in India normally, so let's see. But West Indies will be looking to, they'll be looking to do a lot better, I think, going forward now. So let's see how they do.
Yeah, let's see how West Indies do, and it doesn't help that half the first team's not playing, but it's a shame. But hopefully they'll be all back playing cricket soon. So now the ODI series has finished. The focus now turns on to the Test match series. So the first Test match begins on Wednesday at Chattogram. So I'm really looking forward to that series. So we're in for next week. We're in for a treat of Test match cricket. We've got Tuesday. It's the Wednesday is the Bangladesh West Indies Test match. Thursday is the Pakistan South Africa Test match, and Friday is the India England Test match. So we could potentially have the Friday and the Saturday we could have 3 Test matches going on at the same time. So really, really looking forward to that. All in the subcontinent as well.
I'm really looking forward to it. But it's going to be an absolute nightmare to cover, isn't it? Because they're all at the same time. So I think Bangladesh West Indies starts at 3:30 in the morning on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And Thursday, Pakistan South Africa starts at 5 a.m. and Friday, India England starts at 4 a.m. So the only good thing for me is that Pakistan South Africa, this is the final Test match, right? And with England India, there's going to be 4. So I guess I might have to be a bit tactical about it because I know that I can cover the 3 of them comprehensively, the India England ones. But I'm going to try and do my best to cover all of them the best I can. I think. Again, no offense to Bangladesh West Indies, but I think that's probably the one that's the least biggest out of the 3. I think
it could be competitive.
I think it will be very competitive. I just think, given that West Indies will not have a full strength side as well, I think. But I really want to watch that. And to be honest, if that was on, in the week and there was no other Test matches on, I'd be watching that and doing lives and stuff for it. So it's just a question of I'm working as well. Can I fit everything in? So we'll see. It'll be an interesting week, especially as it's my month end and I'm an accountant as well. So it's going to be super busy, but I'm sure I can fit it in somewhere. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, you're going to have a busy week coming ahead, Fizan, but I'm sure you manage. I'm sure you manage it as always. So a lot of cricket occurring. So you could technically be flicking between the channels, like watching
Yeah, I might have to have like three
Great.
different screens. Like I have one on the TV because I think also is India England going to be on Sky?
I'm not too sure.
It hasn't been confirmed, I don't think. Yeah, because I know Pakistan South Africa is on Sky, right? Because obviously they signed the deal, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of talk around whether India England would be. The reason why is because apparently, I think for India and England, obviously because it's in India, they have the rights. Like an Indian broadcast has the rights for them, and so they basically are selling it. I think they're basically selling it to the highest bidder, really.
Highest bidder.
Whereas previously it was Sky, obviously, but they're saying it could be BT or it could actually be on. And think about this: it could be on Disney Plus.
Why would you have a cricket match on Disney Plus?
Because I think Disney Plus is starting to do sports, and they're literally just trying to branch out. I guess they're not just wanting to do. When is it? It starts on Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think. Yeah. So on Sky Sports Cricket is Pakistan versus South Africa. It's saying.
But not England. India.
Hold on. Pakistan versus South Africa, second test highlights. I wonder. That would be terrible, wouldn't it, if it wasn't?
What? Might be on BT.
It could be on BT
or Amazon Prime. There's too many streaming channels now. It's ridiculous.
But you have to pay for everything now. I guess it could be
in America. It's all in one channel, isn't it? That's what I think.
No, they've got ESPN. So I know for boxing, for example, they've got ESPN. And they've also got Fox. And they've also got PBC, which PBC on Fox, and they've also got Showtime. So they've got three, but for the other sports, I'm not sure. But yeah, hopefully they show it. I'm just seeing whether it's on. No, so I don't think it's on Sky. So let's see. You have to keep you updated as to what's.
I'm sure it'll be on. It'll be on one of the main streaming sites. So yeah, it really shows how cricket coverage has really come on over the last 5-6 years even, because before it'd just be Sky Sports.
Oh, Venu, you might be happy about this. It might be on Channel 4. They've emerged as the front runners. So it might be on
good.
TV.
I'm a massive, as you know, Fizan, I'm a massive believer cricket should be on Freeview. But
so it says Channel 4, BT Sport and Sky are in advanced talks to screen England's 4-match test series. So I don't think it's been decided as of yet.
Well, they should at least look. If Channel 4 don't get it, they should at least show some highlights, I think.
But
considering
are Channel 4 doing highlights? They normally do highlights for England, don't they? Anyway.
Yeah, but they don't do away matches. Normally, I think Channel 5 normally do it. It's the home series they've got rights for.
Yeah.
But yeah, Channel 4 haven't really broadcasted the match. I think they showed the World Cup final, which is great. But they haven't showed since the fantastic 2005 Ashes, which is a real big shame, really. But I'm sure we can do a video on that another time. Interesting. Sorry to go a bit left field. I was just interested. Where is it going to be shown? Yeah, it's a big series, and I'm sure I'm really looking forward to it. Something to look forward to this week, because there's not much really to look forward to, because considering we're in the lockdown at the moment. But yeah, more test match cricket. Happy days. So let's move on to another ODI series sweep. So Afghanistan convincingly beat Ireland, I believe, in the third ODI to win the series 3-0. And so Rashid Khan hits 48 and picks up 4 wickets. Another impressive performance. Kind of thinking, he's an all-rounder, isn't he? And making an excellent start to the World Cup Super League campaign. And yeah, so Afghanistan set 266. Rashid got 48, top scored for Afghanistan. And Ireland could only get 230 in the response. And once again, Sterling, you can never write him off, one of Ireland's best players. Hit 118, but it was not enough as they lost by 36 runs. So an ideal and convincing ODI series victory for Afghanistan. Afghanistan look like a force to reckon with, don't they? I'm looking at the next World Cup. I'm really looking forward to. I'll tell you what. Nicely. Yeah, the next two. So there's going to be back-to-back T20 World Cups, and
I think this is going to be. Obviously, it's not as important as the ODI World Cup, but it's going to be a yardstick to see where Afghanistan are, and I think they're going to go in as the dark horses, especially this year, because it's going to be in turning conditions. It's going to be spinner-friendly pitches for the most part. I'm sure there will be some drop-in pitches that will be different, but I think overall, the conditions will be more suited to spinners. I think next year in Australia, that's a bit. I don't really fancy them as much, but I think in these conditions in India, who knows how that's going to go? And I think Muhammad Nabi and Mujib are quality. I still have questions around Rashid Khan in ODI cricket.
Why?
Because he just doesn't seem to get lots of wickets in ODI cricket. Even in this series, he hasn't got a lot. Mujib has got quite a few.
Okay.
And also, I think the other bowlers, but I think he doesn't go for many runs. He normally goes for 50 or less in 10 overs, but he just doesn't seem to be getting a lot of wickets, and maybe that's just because batsmen are respecting him because of the tag he has. But I know for me, he's more effective in T20 cricket. But I think the longer the format, the kind of less effective he is potentially. But he'll be very important for them in the T20 World Cup for sure. And batting wise, they seem to have improved as well. So I think for me, I'm really excited to see how they do, and I'm hoping that they don't play Pakistan because. They could beat. I think they could beat anyone, to be honest with you. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. Like, it's really nice to see Afghanistan, Bangladesh really improving their cricket, and hopefully become more competitive when they play the big teams like England, India, and Australia, and other teams as well. So that's really good for cricket. So moving on now. So let's move on to the Big Bash leagues coming to a conclusion. So this week we've had the knockout stages for the last few days. So Sydney Sixers won the qualifying for the final. I think they beat Perth Scorchers, and so they're into the final, and they'll play one of Brisbane Heat of Perth Scorchers, and they're going to play each other on a challenger on Thursday, so kind of like a semi-final. And one of those, the winner will play Sydney Sixers in the final. And I think in the Sydney Sixers match, I think James Vince was stranded in 98, and I think the bowler purposely bowled a wide so that he didn't get his 98, but also ensured Sydney Sixers won quite convincingly. What did you think of that, Fizan? Do you think it was intentional, or?
Yeah, it was. I think it was intentional. Andrew Tye did it, so he bowled.
Why would the bowler?
Okay, this happened in quite a few examples in the past in history, and so I think they need. I think was it 1 run?
Yeah.
So, but James Vince, I mean, he may not have even got his 100. He may have, got 99, or it could have been a dot or whatever. Who knows? But yeah, I think. I don't know. It's one of those things that clearly they knew they're going to lose the match, and I think there's a bit of pettiness maybe by Andrew Tye to make sure that James Vince couldn't get his 100 and be revered as the hero, which he was anyway. So you could tell that he was a bit disappointed, and I saw a few England players like Stuart Broad posting on their social media saying, you can just tell by James Vince's reaction. I think it's clearly, I'll tell you what, it's within the laws of the game. We can't get fined for anything. It's just unsportsmanlike behaviour is what I'd say, because realistically, mathematically they can still win, right? As in they can still win the game.
They can.
They can draw the game.
Draw it.
They can draw it. Yeah. So realistically, they can still win it because they can go to super over. But he basically went with the mentality, which I mean he was right, because I mean. If they'd lost from there, it's a once in a million thing. But
a billion, mate.
Yeah, million, billion. And so he went with the attitude that I'm just gonna poo on your party and your parade, basically, and say, "Well, you won it. Well, good for you, but you're not going to get 100." And it was just a bit of a petty thing, I think, from Andrew Tye. And we've seen bowlers do it in history in the past, and I'm sure he won't be the last to do it. I'm sure we'll see more. But I'm assuming you're going to allude to the fact that he's allowed to do it, and he is allowed to do it. I just think when we talk about the spirit of the game, it's probably not within the spirit of the game. It's not nice to see because, as I said, technically you haven't lost the game at that point. So, Yeah, it doesn't sit particularly right with me. I don't really like to see it, but I mean, he's entitled to do whatever he wants, I guess.
Yeah, but what would we say the same for Zahn if James Vince was on 87 and he did it? What? Why? Why does it matter?
But he wouldn't do it on 87, though. That's the point. The
But
only reason he did it is because he was on 98 and he could get his 100. That's my point. He would never do it on 87. If he did it on 87, it wouldn't be deliberate. It would be by accident because he wouldn't care. Because if he scores a 4 or a 6, he's not getting anywhere near his 100. So it doesn't matter, does it? 87 or 90, no one really cares. You're just like, okay, you scored a substantial score. But there's a difference between 98 and 100. And I've said this to you, and maybe it's because I'm a batsman, but that is a big difference. You get a 1 in your hundreds column rather than a 50 in your 50s column. So it does make a difference. And I think for James Vince, considering how well he played, he probably just thought, okay, it's a great bonus to get it. I don't think he'll be crying about it. I just think he'll be thinking that was a bit petty. But obviously, the most important thing is that we won the match. But he didn't really need to do that. It would have been nice to at least have had the chance to try and get it. That makes sense. But yeah.
By the end of the day, his performance put his team into the final, and at the end of the day, his team won. So so I'm really looking forward to that. So it's going to be City Sixers versus one of Brisbane Heat or Perth Scorchers. So really looking forward to that, to the Big Bash final on Saturday. So another kind of tournament has started, which started on Thursday, which I'm not really sure about. It's the Abu Dhabi T10 League. I don't know why it's called T10. I guess it's called 10-10 League, not 2020, 10-10 League. Started on Thursday, and it's basically the fourth edition of that format, and it's looking to further establish whether this concept is legible and whether it can last longer term. And it's quite interesting because I believe the cricket people higher up in the cricket world, these boards, I think they really want cricket in the Olympics, and I think they really want to see how this T10 format works, and then they can maybe make a case for this format to be in the Olympics. And Sangakkara, who's MCC president, spoke at the start of the month, and he said that he wants cricket in the Olympics. Like, who doesn't? I think Fizan and I would both say yes, we want cricket in the Olympics, because I think Fizan spoke really well about making cricket worldwide, and Olympics will be a massive step in that direction. And yeah, I think they're looking at a more condensed version of T20, and they've got T10. So we'll see about this format. And currently, one of my favorite players to play ODI cricket, Shahid Afridi, is playing in this. And what do you think about this format, Fizan? And also, secondly, what do you think about this format potentially being used as a showcase for cricket in the Olympics?
I'm so, I don't know. I'm just so torn on this because, I watched the highlights of one of the games, and I watched and I just thought the standard is pretty poor, if I'm honest with you. And there are some big players playing in it, but it's mixed with a lot of, if I'm being honest with you, nobodies, in terms of nobodies to the international stage anyway. So yeah, like obviously you've got someone like Shahid Afridi, but he's way past the sell-by date. He was a fantastic player in his day, but look, he's nowhere near the player he once was. I think Pooran scored a ridiculous, I think it was like unbelievable knock today. They ended up scoring 162, I think it was, or something along those lines. 169, I think it was actually, in some absolutely like ridiculous hitting. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just can't. I want to get on board with it in a way because, as you said, I think it might be a format that is used in the Olympics. But so Pooran scored 89 of 26 balls. Just ridiculous, isn't it? But look, what we said about the West Indies, they're all playing in this. Lendl Simmons, Nicholas Pooran, Rovman Powell, who's just come from that. So he's obviously not in the test side. Fabian Allen. Kieran Pollard's playing in it as well. Andre Russell, I'm pretty sure, is playing it. Johnson Charles, Andre Fletcher. A lot of them are West Indies players. And look, I think, I know Vinny, you're shaking your head, and I can see why. It's tough though, because these players, and I said it before, they don't earn that much, especially teams like West Indies, etc. And they're obviously going to go to where the money is. And I think we need to find a balance. And I think I could talk about this for a very long time. But as I said, the quality wasn't great for me. And do I want, for example, the matches that are being played now to be on show in the Olympics? No. But I do think that if it goes to the Olympics and it's country by country, that you will have the biggest players potentially playing in it. So I think if you fill, the matches with quality operators, rather than having maybe 40, 50%, of players are quality, then it probably will be better to look at. And I think it'll be easier to digest. And so then maybe at the Olympics, it might work. But I haven't been able to digest it yet, because from what I've seen, it's quite gimmicky, and it's over so quickly that I just can't particularly take it seriously. And as I said, like it's a mix of players. There's some players I haven't even heard of, if I'm being honest with you. And as someone who I'm no cricket expert by any means, I try my best to learn about the game as much as I can, pretty much every day really, and expand my knowledge. But I mean, with someone like me who's been following the game for a very long time, I don't know some of these players, and I'm pretty sure they're either players that just play franchise cricket, or they play in Dubai or Abu Dhabi basically, and they've just been drafted in. So yeah, I mean, it's this tournament I'm not a big fan of, but the format I can see why it could be used in the Olympics, and I'm okay with for now, because I do think it will be different come what's the word? I can see, that it being in the Olympics is probably quite a good thing for cricket going forward, as you said, to grow it. So with quality operators in there, I think it can work. But this format with the players in this tournament, I'm not a big fan of, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, I think the fact that I haven't really followed it, I think kind of speaks volumes. But it'd be really great if some sort of cricket will be one day in the future be in the Olympics. That'd be really good for the game. So let's move on to our final news story that we would going to cover this week. It's the racism in cricket. So 14 Black, Asian, minority ethnic players reported racism in England and Wales. So this was a survey conducted by the PCA, the Professional Cricket Association, and it was sent to 575 male and female cricketers. And with 170 responding, it kind of asked them questions on, if they've ever experienced racism in the game. And a quarter of all who responded, including 14 of 24, Black, Asian, minority ethnic players who answered, 14 out of those 24 said that they experienced or witnessed racism in the game, and that's over half of those players. And as a result, the players have asked for education, which is good. I think that's a step in the right direction. But also, just bear with me, I just need to get this loaded. Where is it? 1 second. So as a result, I've got it here. Sorry, my bad. So every player, official, and administrator in English game will be obliged to undergo an education program in attempt to obviously get rid of racism in the sport. Obviously, that's not acceptable, and hopefully looking to boost inclusivity and diversity. And there'll also be an anonymous phone line set up to enable instances of racism in the game to be, or any other behaviour of that sort to be reported. So step in the right direction in terms of in terms of, I think it's a good idea for that program to put in education to put into place. However, it's not nice to hear that over half of the ethnic minority players said that they've experienced racism in the game, and that's quite a damning indictment, really, to be honest. Especially after who's that Yorkshire player that Rafiq? Is it Rafiq earlier on this year came out and said,
yeah, Rafiq.
Racism. Obviously, Archer has been subject to racist abuse in the past.
It was Azim Rafiq, the ex-Yorkshire captain.
Yeah, even I know this is not an English game, but the Indian players in Australia were also subject to racism as well. So there are instances still going on, and even in football this week, Marcus Rashford also subject to racist abuse as well on social media. So, but in terms of in cricket, this is happening within the game, within dressing rooms, and within teams as well, within the same team as well. And it's quite a damning indictment in terms of the position the English game is at the moment.
Yeah, it's been pretty. I saw that, and I remember, talking to you about it and sending it to you and saying, we want to talk about this, because I just think I don't know what to think about it, because you have someone like, for example, Moeen Ali coming out and saying, I've never experienced racism, and maybe he hasn't. You could look at it two ways. Maybe he has, but he's so used to it that he just brushes over it, because he seems like quite a nice, a guy who basically just thinks to himself, "Oh, I probably didn't mean it," and is quite a forgiving guy from the looks of it. Or it could be a case that he just never experienced it, and some people are lucky in that way. I mean, even someone like like us, we may or may not have. I think it varies from person to person. We've grown up in the UK, born here, and bred here, really. So, I think it can vary from person to person, and I think that shows in the survey that 50% of people have said that they have experienced racism. What it says to me is that, unfortunately, racism is still prevalent in sport, and we've seen it in football, where some Man United player, a young black player actually, was racially abused by his own fans after a poor performance, or a performance that wasn't seen as being up to scratch. And Manchester United came out saying, this is not right. We don't condone this at all. And basically, what? We need to stop. We need to stop treating people differently. Everyone is human. Everyone is the same. And it doesn't matter about your skin color. But unfortunately, some people are still of the opinion that some people are inferior to others, or based on the skin color, which is such an archaic and a wrong way of thinking. And unfortunately, this has been something that I think we thought was getting better, but it doesn't seem to be that way, does it? It just seems to be getting worse, or it seems to be still there. And the only positive I can see coming out of this survey is, hopefully, it really continues to push forward. And it's not an agenda, because I think that's wrong. It's just pushing forward the right way to educate people and educate players, educate people coming through the system in sports, to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and equally. And I'm just hoping that this is another step in the right direction. The fact that we even did the survey in the first place, now it's about how do they take these results and how do they act. Do they just say it's happened? Oh yeah, we're going to do something, and then we never ever hear about it again? Or is it going to be a case of, yeah, we've got the results, let's action this. We're going to keep pushing until we do a survey in, I don't know, 2-3 years time, and ideally you'd say there's 0%, but realistically they might be saying we at least want it to be half of what it is now, a quarter of what it is now. Everyone wants to stamp it out, but the start really comes with educating people from a young age and up. It's sad. It really is, and I think it's something that, as someone who's who's a person of color, you just like you look at it and it's disappointing. It is upsetting. It's upsetting because someone like me, I think I've been relatively pretty lucky, but there's people who have been, by the looks of it in the surveys, who they're playing sport at an elite level and they feel like they're being handicapped, or they are being handicapped because they're not being treated the same, and that's not fair, right? And no one should have to feel sorry even that they're handicapped because of a skin color or they look like. It should be purely based on performance and ability, and it's almost like other players are starting at the starting line, and those players of color who have they've experienced it, their journey has been 1 meter behind the start line, and they've already started, as I said, with a handicap. So fingers crossed this can get resolved. It's not a quick fix. It will take a bit of time, but I think it's well worth investing in, and fingers crossed it will happen.
Yeah, just no, well said, Fazan, on an important matter, and just like you, yeah, just hoping for, hopefully, next generation after that, everyone's treated the same, everyone has equal rights, and everyone has an equal chance to represent their team at a higher level at cricket, or even in the grassroots level as well. So yeah, let's hope this education really improves people's understanding and of different cultures and different backgrounds, and that's what we want, as society as a whole, a more inclusive society. So yeah, so that's Bennett's weekly cricket catch up wrapped up. So this is now my favorite part of the segment, is the awards, and I'm sure Fazan's favorite part as well. Maybe his favorite part was discussing Pakistan's convincing victory over South Africa.
Yeah,
but,
this week it was my favorite part, but don't quote me next week because it might not be if we lose.
No, you're looking good. I don't think you're going to lose. I think it's going to be a 2-0 win.
Well, I was saying that I'm pretty behind on prediction scores, and you were saying about putting up a tally. I might have to do that with you and me and Astrid, I think, because I said I think I'm at least 2 behind you guys. So hopefully we win 2-0 and then I can catch up, or start to catch up, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So might as well just give it Fawad Alam for Star of the Week, Pakistan for Team of the Week. Yeah, isn't that right, Fazan?
No, I don't know. It could be a discussion. I think
make a case why it shouldn't be either of them.
Why it shouldn't be. So Fawad Alam, I think, scored a fantastic 100. But if you want me to play devil's advocate, it was at his home ground, where he averages in domestic cricket. He averages over 56. He actually has the 3rd highest average of any other active player at the moment in domestic cricket. 56. The other players are people like Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, and I think a few other, Steve Smith, people like that. So you could argue that because it's at home, it's maybe not as impressive as someone like. I always say someone like, maybe not even Yasir Shah, because I think Yasir Shah has done it for Pakistan for quite some time, but someone like Naman Ali on his debut, getting 8 wickets in the match. I think it was 8 wickets and got some vital runs with the tail. You could also go with potentially one of the Bangladesh players if you wanted to, although I don't think maybe it was as impressive considering they're maybe facing a weakened side. You can maybe go with one of the Big Bash players.
Player?
Sorry?
Big Bash player? Yeah. James Vince hit a really good 98.
I was going to say you can maybe go on the Big Bash players. Exactly, someone like James Vince or whoever else has performed very well to take them to the final there. But yeah, I think for me, I would actually be more inclined to give it to someone like Naman Ali, to be honest with you. And the reason why I say that is because it was his debut. And
How old is he?
He's actually 34.
I was looking at him. It's like obviously as a neutral. I don't follow Pakistan cricket. I was thinking he's made his debut. I was thinking some young player, but he looks old. Like his hair's receding. And I'm thinking fair play to the bloke. He's
so the one thing I'd say about Pakistan cricket, very briefly, because I don't want to take up too much time, is that we have in the past gone one of 2 ways with a lot of selections, and one is we pick someone who is super young and they look very talented, like a Naseem Shah. like a Shaheen Afridi, and it will either work or it won't work. And it's just the luck of the draw because they haven't really developed fully at that point yet, really, and they haven't had that much first-class cricket. So you're picking them on based on raw talent and expecting them to perform. And unfortunately, coming into the Pakistan side at the moment, we don't have such a fantastic team that you can jump into that team and think there's not that much pressure. I can be the fourth bowler or I can be the backup. You're kind of seen as needing to do a lot, right, early doors. Or you could go with an experienced player, someone like an Aman Ali, who's performed extremely well in domestic cricket over a number of years. And you haven't given him his chance because someone like Yasir Shah has been performing really well. But then you come to the home series and you think, well, it doesn't matter if you're 34 because we think you're going to do a good job for us on this track, and you pick him. And I think what we need to be careful of as a team is, or management needs to be careful of is, I think it's okay to occasionally do either of those, but I think the majority of your selections, if it's not based on regular performers, and when I say regular performers, I mean people who have been regularly playing international cricket and performing consistently. If they're not, then that's when you drop them. And then when you drop them, you look to pick players from the domestic setup that perform well and maybe aren't 1920 because that's performed over the past 2-3 years, rather than they might have had one good season, but the previous season they were poor. So I think that's what we need to be looking at more of. But I thought Nouman Ali was very, very impressive overall, to be honest with you. And as you said, he's 34, but I think if we ever need a second spinner, I think that's probably the person who will most likely be going to for the short-term foreseeable future anyway.
Yeah, so let's so you've convinced me to give it to Nouman Ali for start of the week. Is that right, Fazan?
Yeah, that's who I'd go with. I think Fawad obviously, as you said, scored a fantastic 100, but given Nouman Ali and it being his debut, I just think it was really impressive the shift he put in.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, well done to Nouman Ali for getting the start of the week, and considering it's his debut as well at 34. Was that right, Fazan? That's impressive. That's impressive. So fair play to him. So well done to him. In terms of team of the week, well, we could easily give it to Pakistan, but also England, they won quite convincingly 2-0 sweep against Sri Lanka. That was a good team effort. You can go for Sydney Sixers for topping the Big Bash League and also booking themselves into the final on Saturday. Bangladesh or Afghanistan ODI teams for 3-0 for ODI clean sweeps. I don't know, it's a difficult one, Fazan. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good performance. I mean, England, I guess we're basing it on the Monday's performance where they were impressive, to be fair, because they took over the game, didn't they, really, on Monday? And,
yeah, on the Monday. It was...
Yeah, they took over the game on the Monday.
Let's not talk about it anymore.
And bowled Sri Lanka for 126. And, but yeah, and they did a very good job there. Sibley batted well. I think the field setting, though, was pretty poor, but I don't want to go over that.
By Sri Lanka,
yeah, and Butler batted well as well to see them home. But yeah, I mean, Pakistan. I think I do feel like there's probably a little bit of bias there.
No,
you're probably more of more better suited or better placed to do it. But the reason why I'm thinking also Pakistan is because we performed so poorly in New Zealand. And I know we're at home, but to turn it around, I thought was quite a dramatic turnaround. But the Big Bash sides have done very well as well, to be honest with you. As have Bangladesh and Afghanistan done one against Ireland. But I think maybe the level of opposition potentially wasn't as high. So maybe that's why you could potentially give it to either someone like England or Pakistan, I'd say.
As a neutral, I would be more inclined to give it to Pakistan because I think the first innings, they were 4 down and then, weren't they? They were quite cheap. And
for about 24, 27, I think.
Yeah, and Babar Azam was out and it was a good team effort to get them to a good first innings and a fantastic team effort and also a really good fielding display. That catch, what was that catch? Was it Butt? What was his name?
Imran Butt. Yeah, so the new openers, he's taken
best slip catches I've seen.
There's a lot of catches at short, silly point and short leg as well. So That was impressive.
Yeah,
And you're right, because Babar Azam has to do it himself all the time normally for Pakistan.
yeah,
But other people actually managed to chip in, so it made a big difference.
So it was a team effort, really. It wasn't, you weren't just relying on Babar Azam to score a big runs in the first innings, and very convincing and clinical. And as you said at the start of this video, like, it was surprising to see Pakistan so clinical and so on it. So I'm gonna give it to Pakistan, and I that's as a neutral, so I'm not being biased at all. And to be honest, the more bias is towards the fact it's a test match. I'm not going to give it to an ODI team or a T20 team. I think I must have done it in the past, but
yeah, you have. Well, I think next week, if unless there is a very good test performance, we might have to give it to the winner of the Big Bash if it's a very impressive performance, I guess. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I guess it'll be one of. It'd probably be Sydney Sixers by the way they're going, but we'll see. So well done to Pakistan for winning convincingly and very in a clinical fashion as well this week. So let's move on. In terms of who needs to do the homework, I would say Sri Lanka's batting, because I think that was on a Monday, wasn't it, last week that they?
Yeah, I think though maybe we need to.
Should we ignore it?
No, I think maybe we need to single out a player potentially, though, because I think maybe it's a bit harsh to go with the whole batting, because some players. Well, Chandimal scored runs though in the first.
The way he got out, like, Root sledged him like, "Oh, go on, Chandy, go and hit one out of the park," and he just does it. I'm like, "You idiot! What are you doing?"
Quinton de Kock, I think, is one.
Yeah, the Kock. He's cocked it up, hasn't he?
Yeah, because Elgar got runs one of the innings. Markham got runs in the other. I mean, Duplessis didn't really get runs, but I think he got a couple of decent balls, to be fair. Van der Dussen batted well in one of the innings. Bavuma got some runs. De Kock didn't get any. So I think he was pretty disappointing. Lind was very disappointing, I thought, as the all-rounder, spinning all-rounder as well. So, but I think maybe De Kock, I think he needs to brush up and do his homework on his captaincy. He needs to really commit to it, I think. I don't think he's doing it on purpose, but I think subconsciously, because he doesn't particularly want to be captaining, is filtered into his demeanour and into his batting. And so I think he needs to really either make peace with the fact that he's captain, or he needs to relinquish it ASAP, I think.
Yeah, let's give it to De Kock. I think, in his batting and also his captaincy has been not the best during that test match with Pakistan earlier this week. In terms of the team that needs to do the homework, like, you've made a case for South Africa in what you just said there, Faizan. Maybe Sri Lanka from the performance earlier on in the week could give it to Ireland, or could give it to West Indies. What do you think? I'm not too sure on this one. I would say South Africa, because it was quite disappointing.
I think so. My personal opinion is that South Africa played well for the first. Well, they were competitive anyway for the first 3 days, and on the fourth day we really blew them away, and they just didn't really respond.
So you're saying we're being a bit unfair if we would give it to South Africa? Yeah,
but in my opinion, I think potentially, and even Sri Lanka again, the first 3 days of that test match they were competitive. I'm actually more tempted, and even though I think all three of the matches, or 2 out of the 3 at least anyway, were pretty competitive, I'm tempted to go with Ireland. And I'll tell you why. Because Ireland have, if you think about this, Ireland a couple of years back was seen as a better playing nation than Afghanistan. But it doesn't seem like they have, it doesn't seem like they've improved as much as someone like Afghanistan. And that, I think, there's 2 reasons for that, I think. Number 1 is the Rashid Khan effect that he's had, and he's clearly inspired, I think, a generation of players coming through. Doesn't matter about how good we think he is, because he's revered as being a top talent. And what's happened is that's created fever in Afghanistan. And let's be honest, Venu, we know about the state of the country. The facilities, etc., that they have won't be incredible. Whereas somewhere like Ireland, the facilities will be better, but I don't think as you said, they've got someone like Paul Sterling. They used to have the the Bryan brothers, the O'Brien brothers. Kevin O'Brien still plays. They've got some decent players in there, like Camphor looks quite good. Balbirnie, the captain, I thought he looks quite good, but he hasn't scored a lot of runs as of late. He's been quite disappointing. And I think overall, their overall team, it kind of seems about the same quality as about 5 years ago. And you'd expect a side like them to have improved, whereas someone like Afghanistan have improved quite comprehensively. And part of the reason, the second reason that I'm going to touch upon is to do with franchise cricket, because unlike somewhere like England, where you can play domestic cricket and you'll improve, the domestic scene in Afghanistan probably isn't amazing. So what's happened is they have been playing in the CPL, the PSL, the IPL, the Big Bash, whatever the Bangladesh Premier League, which is called the BPL, I think. I don't know, but anyway, all of these franchise tournaments, they've been playing it in them, and what that's meant is that it's improved them, and also they've really, I think, stepped up when they faced other nations, and they've really stepped up, and I guess that is quite evident in this series, because if you told me 2 years ago Afghanistan are going to play Ireland, I would have said that's evenly matched. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said Ireland would win that. But now, if you look at it, I would have said Afghanistan are going to win, and they did. I understand it's in the UAE, but even if it was in Ireland, I'd back Afghanistan. But just because I think there's a slight gulf there now, whereas before there never used to be. So I think Ireland need to do their homework in the sense that they need to figure out, do they want to stay where they're at the moment, or do they want to progress as a country, a cricketing nation? Because at the moment it looks like they're a bit stagnant, and there needs to be a push, I think, by that cricket board and maybe the players, because football, for example, is huge in Ireland, so is rugby, but then it's huge in the UK as well, and yes, so it's huge in England even, and yes, there's probably a bit more funding in England, but Afghanistan won't have much funding, so I think maybe that's something we can look into, because I'm not so clued up on it, but I think Ireland have been disappointing, I think, over the last few years, and I would tend to think that they need to, they need to kind of do a lot better, I think, going forward.
Yeah, I think I can't really disagree with you, Fizan. You made a compelling argument, compelling reasons to have Ireland as a team that needs to do the homework. Yeah, it is quite disappointing not to see Ireland make the progress that they could have made, like, ever since. I still remember when I think Irish cricket, I think of Kevin O'Brien's fantastic knock against England in 2007 World Cup or 2011 World Cup, one of the two. But it was fantastic innings, but they haven't really progressed as well as they would have liked. So yeah, Ireland team of the week that needs to improve. Not team of the week, the team that needs to improve. In terms of moment of the week, what's your moment of the week? I've got one, but I was wondering what your one would be.
Oh, really? Have you got one? Oh, I really need to prepare my moment of the week, because I feel like I can just do it off the cuff, but then I always, unless I've got one is Fawad Alam's celebration, because that seems to be,
that's been done before.
Yeah, but that's the Ertugrul celebration. He's made it his own, so I thought that was quite cool. And just because I think he's still got a lot of critics, so to score another 100 in a second consecutive series was quite good. But the other moment, I'm trying to think. What's a good moment? Oh, Dickweller, but we already talked about that. That was for last week. The banter behind the stumps, wasn't it? I'm gonna go. I don't know, actually. What's your moment of the week?
What are you gonna say?
I don't know. I was thinking what maybe. Oh, Naman only getting his fifer. That was a big one for me as a debutant. Getting out Aidan Markram. He got Aidan Markram out. That was a big moment in the match, and I think that was a turning point.
That was when he was set, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was set. So he was on 70 odd.
And then Van der Dussen fell quickly after that.
No, so Van der Dussen had fallen. So Van der Dussen got out first. Yeah, and then they had him and Duplessis in. And Naman only got him with a cracker. It just gripped and turned, and he played the wrong line, and it spun more than he expected and bounced more than he expected. And he basically played it straight to steady point. And it was a really good catch. And we just went crazy because then we had two new batsmen to look at in Duplessis and de Kock. So, and then the way we got out Duplessis as well. So I thought that was a huge moment. Yeah, what were you thinking?
You know how much I like a good catch, especially in the outfield. In the BBL. 38-year-old Ben Laughlin, I think I sent this to you.
Yeah.
In the outfield, 38 years old, and one of the best outfield catches. He was just running at full speed and just one hand catches it. Look it up on YouTube. It's a fantastic catch.
Wow. Okay. No, I will. I'll have a look. I'll have a look into it.
Great catch. And I saw that. I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw it. Let's go with that because I love a good catch. So there were a few good catches in the Pakistan match, but not as good as that one. So we'll go with that one.
I always like an outfield catch, and you just think, how did they don't get injured? Like, if I was to do that, I'm just scared.
They train though. They train and they practice it multiple times, and yeah,
the ground fielding, especially in the outfield, has really improved the last few years. It's
100%.
Ridiculous. Especially on the boundary, players will catch the boundary and just chuck it back in, or give it to another player. Oh, fantastic! Yeah. But I thought I'll give him that moment of the week. So well done, Ben Laughlin, for that. 38 years old, can show the young guns like ourselves. Never too late. That's for
never too late. Benny's like, yeah, I'm gonna go into the nets now.
Yeah, it's never too late. And Roger Federer is, it's 40 odd this year. Never too late. So,
but he's been playing since he was 18. To be fair, pro tennis anyway. So.
Okay, so that's that. In terms of what you're looking forward to this upcoming week, Fazan, there's so much cricket. Test matches, BBL final.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, Test cricket. I'm like you, Test cricket.
Let me guess, the Pakistan South Africa second Test match. That's what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, of course, as a Pakistan fan, 100%. But I'm really looking forward to the India-England match. I think it's going to be a good contest as well, and I think both will be very good. I think South Africa will be looking to bounce back after being defeated in the first one, and Pakistan will be looking to consolidate a good win. England will be looking to carry on good form after Sri Lanka, after that Sri Lanka series, and India will be thinking, well, we've just beaten Australia at home, so we're invincible.
Without half the first team playing, like
so
players playing, it's ridiculous.
I think they'll be thinking, we're at home. This is going to be easy. The only thing I'd say, actually, potentially, and I'm sure India won't be thinking this, but there could be a thought and maybe a slight complacency even that might settle into India.
Yeah.
After the high that's just happened in Australia. They need to be careful that they don't just think, well, we've got our first team players coming back now. We're going to be so strong and we're at home. This is going to be an easy win. And I'm sure they won't be, but even subconsciously, I think they need to be careful of that because this England side, they play spin a lot better than the previous England sides, I would say. And they'll be up for it. And it won't be an easy. I don't think they're going to have it all their own way, India. And a lot of people are predicting India to clean sweep England. So I think the expectation is on India as well. Whereas in Australia, I don't think they have that type of expectation. So let's see how it goes. I think it's going to be quite intriguing. And similarly, I think the Pakistan South Africa one will be as well.
Yeah, so much cricket to look forward to, especially I'm looking forward to the England Test match, that's for sure. That begins on Friday. So, yeah, I think that's everything from...
we need to do funniest moment, don't we?
Oh, funniest moment. Oh, there was one. There was one. I forgot. Dick Weller behind the stumps. That was epic.
Oh, that was last week though.
Was it last week? Did we include that last week?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
I don't know. There's
funny one out in the BBL I saw today. Oh, that was funny. It was the match I saw earlier. What was it? What happened? Oh yeah, so the bowler bowled and it appealed for LBW. And the batsman ran, and then he turned around and then quickly ran him out. That was funny.
That was last week. I was going to say Joe's run out because it's so knackered, but that was last week. I think there's not really too much to be honest with you, is there? There weren't too many hilarious moments, I didn't think. I'm going to say this. I found it quite funny that. I said this in the group. Ramiz Raja talking about, you know how I'm a big
much you
fan
love him.
of Ramiz Raja, not, but he basically said, so Rabada cleaned up Abu Dhabi with a ball that kept low, and after he was like saying to Wasim Akram, like, he should have kept that out, like it was such an easy, like that was so easy, he should have been able to keep that out so easily, and he just played it so poorly. And I was just thinking, like, as a batsman, when it keeps low, it definitely does put you off, and that's why he was late on the shot. And it's like sometimes that happens. And Wasim Akram said to him, and he put him in his place, and he just said, yeah, it's easy for us to say in the commentary box, and just laughed. And I just thought, thank you, Waz, thank you. And the reason why is because out of all the people, like, Ramiz Raj is not going to say anything to Wasim Akram, because Wasim Akram is, like, if we look at the legends of the game, Ramiz Raj is not a legend of the game. He was a good player. He was a pretty good player back in the day. Obviously, he was part of the 92 winning World Cup team as well. But Wasim Akram is, like, you know, up there, right? And in a lot of people's books, they have him as like the best bowler of all time. At least some people do anyway. That's a video for another day. But yeah, so I just thought that was great to put him in his place, because not many commentators do, and I thought that was hilarious. So that'll be my funniest moment.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that, Fizan. So well done, Waz, for getting that award to add to his collection of awards. So yeah, that's everything. Anything else to add, Fizan? It's been a great week of cricket, hasn't it? And another great week to look forward to next week.
Mate, I tell you what, I just looked at the time and how long we're talking to you, so probably my fault. Sorry for that. But next week's going to be even longer, I think. There's going to be so much cricket to
that's
get
all
through.
I'm saying.
Yeah, bring your popcorn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one next week. But yeah. So that's everything, really. So
actually, lastly, sorry. I was going to say, I don't know if you're going to mention it. So I've been very, very lucky to do my first cricket interview with Durham opener Sean Dixon. So yeah, for anyone watching this, please do go and check it out. Not because I've done it, but just because the insights he gives are really good. And Venu's watched it as well and listened to it, and he said the same thing to me. And I think I've got a lot of feedback from a lot of people saying, you know, please can you do more of those? So I'll be looking to try and get more cricketers on, pro cricketers on, and he gives really the ins and outs of what he does in the off season. Also, he scored a fantastic 318 for Kent a couple of years back, a record-breaking 318, and talked about that. He was also quite close to people like Aidan Markram and Zach Crawley, so he gave me a pretty good insight into you know, what type of players there are, their mentality, and what he thinks about them as players. And a whole other host of things, his journey. And it was just a fantastic experience for me, really, to listen to and to learn from. So I just wanted to drop that in.
Yeah, definitely. I watched it earlier today and I thought it was a fantastic insight. And he said something like cricket's 95% mental and 5% talent. And I was thinking, I still got a shot, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, mate, if these players are still catching balls at 38 years old, I've still got a chance. So you never know. So on that note, thank you for watching, and please feel free to watch that video on Fizan's channel. Subscribe to his channel. Please comment as well. Like the videos. You know the business. We've said this enough times. So thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next week for some more cricket. So bye for now.